Before I begin the video proper, I want to start by thanking all the people who watched and liked my previous Legend of the Five Rings lore videos. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that much support for something as relatively obscure as L5R, but the fact that you have has inspired me to carry on. Since I started by talking about the great clans, I only thought that it would be fair if I continue with the minor clans. However, since I wish to lead up eventually to the clan wars, I've decided to limit myself only to the minor clans who were founded prior to the Scorpion coup. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's begin by first establishing what makes a minor clan different from a great clan like the crab, the lion, or the crane. The first distinction is obvious. While each of the great clans was founded by one of the 7 divine siblings of the first emperor, the founders of all the minor clans were ordinary mortal men and women. Most of the time, they were vassals of one of the great clans, though occasionally some were founded by ronin, masterless samurai. What usually happens is that a samurai will perform some great service to the empire that is brought to the attention of the emperor, who may choose to reward the lucky man or woman with the right to gather samurai to their banner and found a clan. As part of this, the new clan founder and consequently clan champion is presented with a master-forged katana from the hand of the emperor himself. The sword becomes the ancestral weapon of the minor clan, and in the event that the minor clan is destroyed or disbanded or even disgraced, the sword is ceremonially destroyed as a sign of the clan's dissolution. The other key difference is one of size. All non-ronin samurai in Rokugan are organized into family clans, each in turn ruled over by a clan champion. Under this is what I like to call the primary families, and underneath each primary family are the so-called vassal families. As an example, in the Scorpion clan you have the Bayushi family. Serving under them are at least 4 known and named vassal families: the Aotora, the Kentsu, the Rokugo, and Ugawa families. While vassal families are of course subordinate to the primary families they serve, the distinction usually only becomes relevant when dealing with outsiders. As an example, we'll use the case of a Scorpion samurai named Rokugo Ichiyo. When dealing with a non-Scorpion clan member, he would introduce himself as Bayushi Ichiyo, for he would be serving in his capacity as a representative of his primary family as well as that of the Scorpion clan as a whole. Only to his fellow Scorpions would he refer to himself and be known as Rokugo Ichiyo, as it would be assumed that if you are an insider, you would already know about the relation between the vassal family and the primary family. If, however, Ichiyo wished to clarify his status as a member of a vassal family to an outsider, he would refer to himself as Bayushi Ichiyo of House Rokugo. The key difference, therefore, between the minor and major clans is that while a minor clan has only one primary family, with at most 1 or 2 vassal families, the great clans have between 3 and 5 primary families, each with as many as 5 vassal families serving under them. And just as how the primary families of the great clans serve specific roles within the clan itself, so too often do vassal families serve specific roles within the primary family they serve. With the explanations concluded, we can finally begin the minor clan omnibus properly. As with the great clans, I'm limiting myself specifically to how each of the minor clans was founded and what characteristics they are most known for. We will begin with the very first minor clan to be officially recognized by the Empire, the Fox clan. Their story begins in year 45 of the imperial calendar, 3 years after the end of the war with Fu Lang. In that year, Shinjo, kami and founder of the Kirin clan, decided to leave Rokugan and wander the lands beyond the Emerald Empire, and she asked all those who were willing to come with her. Of course, like all the kami, Shinjo commanded the loyalty, respect, and even the love of her followers, and so the vast majority of the Kirin clan journeyed with her across the burning sands and out of the sight and memory of the people of Rokugan. However, a small remnant of the Kirin clan, for reasons that haven't been specified, opted to remain behind and watch over the borderland that had been granted to them by the first Emperor Hantei. And so, for at least a generation, the Kirin clan persisted in Rokugan, patrolling the northern border, tending the land, and establishing something of a working relationship with their neighbor, the Lion clan, specifically the Ikoma family, whom they often supported as rangers and scouts. But despite the passage of time, the Kirin samurai remained few in number. And while the northern steppe territory that was their home had never been the most fertile or richest land in all of Rokugan, it was certainly very appealing to the various Gaijin barbarian tribes that lived beyond the border. And it didn't take them long to recognize just how few and scattered their Rokugani opposition was. And before long, the remnants of the Kirin clan found themselves overwhelmed by increasingly vicious raids and incursions by Gaijin bandits. Because of their aforementioned relationship with the Ikoma family, the Kirin clan was able to ask for and receive aid from the Lion clan, but as a whole, the Lion were more concerned with their own internal affairs, and so ultimately, the remnants of the Kirin clan appealed directly to the Emperor for aid. The Emperor at this point was Hantei Genji, the son of the first Emperor Hantei. And upon receiving the Kirin clan's cry for help, he immediately gave direct orders to the Lion clan to purge the Gaijin from the empire. And the Lion clan is nothing if not obedient to the will of the throne. Against the massed, disciplined armies of the Lion, the Gaijin bandit gangs stood no chance. Those that were not slaughtered were soon running for the border as fast as their legs or horses would carry them. Unfortunately, the Kirin clan's triumph soon turned sour. Barely had the dust begun to settle when the Lion clan, and especially the ever-belligerent Matsu family, were petitioning the emperor to grant them rule and stewardship over the lands of the Kirin clan. They argued that the remnant that remained were too few and therefore inadequate to the task of protecting the empire's northwestern border. Ultimately, the emperor agreed, and soon enough the remnants of the Kirin clan found themselves being expelled from their own home by their erstwhile allies. Perhaps in an attempt to soften the blow, the emperor gave to the Kirin clan lands in the southeast, in the border country between the lands of the Scorpion, Crab, and Crane clans. This land was comprised mostly of a forest known as Kitsune no Mori, and shortly after settling down in their new home, did the Kirin clan remnant discover that the forest was aptly named. Back during the war with Fu Leng, the first emperor decreed that all rebellious humans, as well as non-human entities, were a potential threat and had to be either expelled or eliminated lest they join forces, he believed, with Fu Leng. Many such non-humans, like the bat-like Komori, chose to run, fleeing beyond the borders of the empire. Some, such as the lion-like Kitsu, chose to resist the expulsion and were almost wiped out. Still others went into hiding, and among these were the Kitsune, fox spirits who occasionally chose to leave the sanctuary of the deep woods to have fun. Unfortunately, a Kitsune's idea of fun is making mischief and playing pranks on the local humans, something that would hardly have endeared them to the Rokugani even before the first emperor ordered his purge. And for the most part, the great clans had been very thorough in carrying out the first emperor's decree. By war's end, there were very few non-humans left within the borders of the Emerald Empire. And by the time the Kirin clan remnant had resettled in the lands near Kitsune no Mori in year 89 of the empire, the Kitsune themselves were nearly extinct. In fact, shortly after the resettlement, the very last Kitsune was found dead in a hunter's trap by Shinun, then acting daimyo of the Kirin clan remnant and a powerful Shugenja. It turned out that this last Kitsune was a mother, and near the body, Shinun discovered her two remaining cubs, a black male and a white female. Out of a sense of guilt for what had happened to their mother, Shinun used her most powerful magics to transform the two cubs into human children. Kitsune are natural shapeshifters in Legend of the Five Rings, just as they are in real traditional East Asian folklore. But the spell that Shinun placed upon them was a permanent transformation, and having done so, she resolved to care for the two children as though they were her own. She named the boy Osusuki and the girl Akamachi. and was determined that when they both came of age, that they would serve as the bridge between the humans and the spirits of the land. For while their forms had been changed, the blood of the Kitsune race still flowed strong in their veins. So it was that when Shinun petitioned Emperor Genji to allow the Kirin remnant to reorganize as a minor clan, and the Emperor granted her request, Shinun chose the fox to be the symbol of the new clan. Shinun was proclaimed the first clan champion of the Fox clan, and under her care, both Otsutsuki and Akamachi grew to adulthood. And thus, just as Shinun had hoped, these two children became the bridge between man and spirit. Akamachi, described as a beautiful woman with radiant silver hair, disappeared into the forests of Kitsune no Mori, and there had children with the spirits of nature, thus reviving the Kitsune race. Meanwhile, Otsutsuki remained with the humans and took one as a wife. Shinun then stepped down, proclaimed Otsutsuki the new champion of the Fox clan, and decreed that from henceforth his children would rule after him under the name of the Kitsune family. Given its close ties with forest spirits and the supernatural origins of its ruling family, it should come as no surprise that the Fox clan was principally known as a Shugenja clan. The magic practiced by the Kitsune family is mostly nature magic, related to plants and animals. Such studies have also made them experts in herbalism and animal husbandry. However, the Fox clan is also known throughout the empire for producing skilled hunters and scouts. The lands of the Fox clan have poor soil, not good for growing food. As a result, the diet of the clan and the peasants it rules over contains a larger than usual ratio of meat derived from wild game. However, this has also made them a little suspect in the eyes of Rokugani society. For while hunting may be a sport of nobility the world over, both real and fictional, this comparative over-reliance on wild game means that the Fox clan is often involved in such unsavory, quote-unquote, tasks as the skinning and cleaning of game animals, which Rokugani society regards as socially impure. The Fox clan might have changed their name and even redefined themselves, but they never quite forgot their ties to the Kirin clan. Even after their forced removal from the old Kirin lands, the Fox clan maintained an extensive library. Those of the Kirin clan that had chosen to stay behind were determined that when Shinjo and her followers returned from their long exile, they would have a full and accurate account of all that had gone on in the empire during their absence. This duty they carried out faithfully. However, when the Kirin clan did finally return under the new name of the Unicorn clan, the two had diverged so much from one another that despite an offer from the Unicorn clan to return and reintegrate themselves, the Fox clan ultimately chose to remain independent. The Fox clan was officially founded in the year 90 and was the first minor clan to be recognized by the imperial throne. However, it was not the first minor clan to be founded. That distinction belongs to the Mantis clan. The origin of the Mantis clan begins with Hida Osanowo, champion of the Crab clan, half-brother of the Crab Thunder Hida Atarasi, who perished in the Shadowlands, second-born son of the Kami Hida and his second wife, the Elemental Dragon of Thunder, who had incarnated as a mortal woman. With that kind of family background, it should come as no surprise that Osanowo was a larger-than-life figure. He is credited with inventing the sport of falconry in the Emerald Empire, almost wiped out the troll kingdom of Volturnum, and, with the thunder and lightning powers inherited from his mother, is said to have carved the great castle of Kyuden Hida itself from the stone of a single mountain, using thunderbolts in place of hammer and chisel. After his father Hida chose to retire as Crab Clan champion in the year 63 and passed the reins of leadership to him, Osanowo soon demonstrated that he had all the determination, vigor, and aggressiveness that one would expect from a champion of the Crab Clan. Whether in defending the Carpenter's Wall against the ravening hordes of the Shadowlands, or in launching punitive offensives into the Tainted Wastes himself, he was a warrior without peer. When not using his lightning powers in battle, he wielded the Ono of Osanowo, a battle axe over 4 feet long and so massive that only a scion of Hida had the height and strength to wield it. But the monstrous denizens of the Shadowlands are just as remorseless as any crab samurai, and Osanuo soon discovered that the war his father had pledged the clan to fight was truly an eternal one. The lands of the Crab Clan are for the most part desolate and poor in resources. If the Crab Clan was to survive and sustain itself for the long war, Hida Osanuo knew that he would have to make alliances with the other great clans. And so he began searching for a wife from a wealthy and influential family. And at last he found one in the form of Matsu Kyoda, a fierce daughter of the Lion Clan. They were married in year 65 of the empire, and almost immediately the relationship between husband and wife got off to a rocky start. The Matsu family is famed for aggression and belligerence, and Kyoda never hesitated to argue tactics, strategy, or simple policy with her husband. Osanuo, with stereotypical crab stoicism, endured his wife's frequent tirades until it was finally announced that she was with child. The entire Crab Clan rejoiced at the news, none more so than Osanuo himself. However, he might have rejoiced a little too much. As the night his wife's pregnancy was announced, he got blind drunk, and the next morning awoke to find himself in bed with a peasant woman he did not know. Things got even more awkward when she too turned out to be pregnant. To his credit, Osanuo did acknowledge the child is his, when he could so easily have denounced both the child and the mother. And so, less than a year later, the Lord of the Crab Clan welcomed 2 baby boys into the world. By his wife Kyoda was born Kaimetsuo. By the peasant woman, whose name has never been known, Kenzan. Osanuo loved both of his sons equally, and showed no favoritism to either. But as the 2 boys grew up, it soon became clear that Kaimetsuo was by far the better fighter. In all of the sparring matches between the 2 half-brothers, Kaimetsuo always won against Kenzan. It was always a narrow victory, mind you, but victory nonetheless. And yet, Osanuo noticed that even though he lost every single fight against his half-brother, Kenzan never gave up. He would always get back to his feet and challenge his half-brother again. At last, both boys underwent the Genpuku coming-of-age ceremony and were acknowledged as men and full members of the Crab Clan. Of course, that day, the question on everyone's mind was, whom would Osanuo choose to be his successor? Who would inherit the ancestral clan sword Chikara and succeed him as clan champion when he was gone? Osanuo then promptly shocked the entire clan by announcing that Kenzan, not Kaimetsuo, would succeed him. As his followers stared on in shock, Osanuo explained that the Crab Clan was defined by its great burden, the burden first taken up by his father, the Kami Hida, to forever guard the empire against the Shadowlands. Osanuo recognized that this fight was one that would have many defeats, but no ultimate victory, for it would be a war without end. As such, he argued that Kenzan, who always lost but never gave in, better understood the ethos and burden that so defined the Crab Clan than Kaimetsuo, who never lost in his life. Ultimately, the vast majority of the clan chose to support Osanuo's decision. However, Kaimetsuo was angry at having been passed over for a birthright that he thought was rightfully his. His mother was outraged. Remember, before she'd married Osanuo, Kyoda had been from the Matsu family. And the Matsu family is famous for being incredibly thin-skinned when it comes to slights against their honor, both real or perceived. The fact that her son, the son of Osanuo's lawful wife, had been passed over for a boy who was literally the product of a drunk accident, well, it was enough to make her blood boil. Unfortunately, neither mother nor son had enough supporters among the Crab Clan willing to go against Osanuo's decision. And so, Kyoda and Kaimetsuo ultimately chose voluntary exile, taking with them Kyoda's lion retainers and those few members of the Crab Clan that had supported Kaimetsuo's claim. Eventually, they crossed the Southern Ocean to a chain of tropical islands which they later named the Islands of Spice and Silk. And there, they discovered, or should I say rediscovered, the Komori. Way back during the war with Fu Lang, the Komori, a race of relatively peaceful bat-like shapeshifters, had been one of the many non-human races effectively marked for death by decree of the first emperor. But Hida, the Crab Clan founder, had recognized that the Komori were innocent and harmless, and so instead helped them escape across the sea to the islands of Spice and Silk. Unmei and the Komori still remembered this great deed, and so welcomed the grandson of their benefactor and his followers with open arms. Unmei and Kaimetsuo in fact became close friends, and as his followers settled into their new home, Kaimetsuo would spend long hours with the Komori leader, listening to him tell stories of his grandfather, his strength, his bravery, and even occasionally his wisdom. And the more Kaimetsuo listened to these stories, the less angry he felt at his father for passing him over as successor. Eventually, Kaimetsuo even became convinced that this was always meant to be, that his father had essentially done him a favor, freeing him to discover that destiny on his own terms. And in that spirit, Kaimetsuo decided to rename his little band of followers as the Mantis Clan. He did this in year 80 of the Empire, 10 years before the founding and acknowledgement of the Fox Clan, making the Mantis Clan the oldest minor clan in all of Rokugan. But this would never be officially acknowledged by the Chrysanthemum Throne until the year 427. Why Kaimetsuo chose the mantis to be his symbol is never explained, but perhaps it might have something to do with the kind of weapons whose use Kaimetsuo pioneered as the first lord of the Mantis Clan. Though he was a samurai, in his years on the islands of Spice and Silk, Kaimetsuo found himself preferring the use of weapons quite unconventional for a man of his class, namely the kama, short combat scythes, and the kusarigama, which essentially is a kama attached to a long chain. Certainly such weapons might have evoked the image of the insect he ultimately chose to represent his new, at the time unofficial, minor clan. Now there ultimately is more to Kaimetsuo's story than this, but as I said at the top of this video, I'm limiting myself to the origins of the minor clans. And Kaimetsuo's story, namely the quest for vengeance against his father's murderer, will have to wait for a future video. Suffice it to say that Kaimetsuo went on to marry and have 2 children, a son that would later inherit leadership of the clan, and a daughter who would become the first Mantis Clan Shugenja. Mantis Clan magic is principally storm magic, things like the summoning of lightning bolts or the raising of gale force winds. In fact, as a whole, the Mantis Clan culturally identifies itself with storms and lightning. However, Mantis Shugenja are rare, and as such, the clan would become mostly known as a clan of warriors and sailors. In fact, they would become the only clan, apart from the Crane, with any significant naval capabilities, which is unsurprising given that the Mantis live on a bunch of islands. In fact, the 2 clans quickly became economic rivals, with the Crane holding a monopoly of coastline and therefore most of the economy of Rokugan, while the Mantis would often have superior ships, better designed for deep water sailing. Another reason for these 2 clans to butt heads was the differences in attitude. The Crane are known for being refined and graceful. The Mantis, much like their crab forebears, are brash and abrasive. But, perhaps because of Kaimetsuo's lion mother and her retainers, the Mantis Clan also has an aggressiveness to it that the Crab Clan lacks. They never passed up a chance to raid the Crane coastline or attack Crane shipping, which would lead to the Mantis Clan gaining an unsavory reputation as pirates. Bit of a real-world aside here, I've heard some very divergent opinions on the Mantis Clan. On the one hand, I hear that they were often fan favorites among players and even among the people at Alderac Entertainment, the people who originally designed the game. But on the flip side, I've also heard that favoritism on the part of the game creators often led to the Mantis being favored over the other factions, much to the annoyance of all non-Mantis players. Anyone who's more familiar with this topic is more than welcome to share such information in the comments section. Anyway, if the Mantis Clan was the oldest minor clan in Legend of the Five Rings, then prior to the Clan War, the youngest of these was the Wasp Clan. This story began in the year 1088, when a man and a woman fell in love. The man was Bayushi Uchinore, first cousin of the Scorpion Clan champion. The woman was Akodo Tamako, the daughter of Akodo Ranabe, an influential member of the Lion Clan. Their love resulted inevitably in the birth of a son, whom Tamako named Tsuruchi, the little wasp. For the most part, Tsuruchi's childhood was almost idyllic. As a member of the warrior class, he was trained as a samurai, and apart from having especially keen skills with the bow, his training was mostly unexceptional. It is said that his lion mother taught him honor and duty as befits the code of Bushido, while his scorpion father taught him cunning and pragmatism. There was, however, one thing wrong with this otherwise blissful picture of a happy family. Neither the Scorpion Clan nor the Lion Clan had sanctioned this relationship. See, when Uchinori and Tamako first met, he was already a married man. At the direction of his clan, Uchinori had entered into a political marriage with a woman of the Unicorn Clan. But his wife was dull and unattractive, while Tamako was beautiful and brilliant. After all, she was an Akodo, and thus had been raised to be a general and military strategist. Of course, L5R being based off of real-world feudal Japan, it was neither unheard of nor particularly objectionable for a man to have relations with multiple women. However, a man can only have one legal wife, and this was what really enraged the Lion Clan. It wasn't just the fact that Tamako, a woman of great status within the Lion Clan, was in bed with a dishonorable, deceitful scorpion, it was that she was the concubine of a dishonorable, deceitful scorpion. For her part, Tamako didn't care so much about her status so long as she could be with the man she loved, which naturally only threw more fuel on the proverbial fire. You see, one of the running themes in Legend of the Five Rings is that when people prioritize love over duty to their clans, it almost always ends very badly. As for the Scorpion Clan, they didn't much care about Uchinori's private life so long as it didn't interfere with the political gains of his marriage. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Uchinori to get on his own clan's bad side as well. You see, Scorpion Clan custom demanded that at some point in Tsuruchi's childhood, the boy was to be separated from his parents and trained by his Bayushi relatives. But Uchinori surprised his relatives by refusing to do so, insisting that he would train Tsuruchi himself. This turned out to be a very bad move, for despite its dishonorable reputation, the Scorpion Clan prizes duty and loyalty above all else. First is loyalty to the Empire, second is loyalty to the clan, and Uchinori had just made the very lethal mistake of putting loyalty to wife and son ahead of his clan. It's unknown just how much of all this Tsuruchi himself was aware growing up. Most of his life was spent in the castle of Kyuden Ashinagabachi, mastering the bow and the sword. But given that both of his parents were prominent members of their respective families, it certainly would have been impossible for him to avoid the whispers of what the imperial court called the shame of the Akodo. At long last, on New Year's Day, 1107th year of the Empire, the hammer of retribution came crashing down. Tsuruchi, who had not yet undergone the Genpuku coming-of-age ceremony despite being 19, awoke that morning to find that Scorpion agents had assassinated both of his parents. That same day, word reached him that a massive lion army led by his mother's brother was advancing on Kyuden Ashinagabachi. To make matters worse, it was clear that a sizable percentage of the castle's garrison was more sympathetic to the attackers than to their lord, and would likely betray Tsuruchi at the first opportunity. Acting quickly, Tsuruchi demonstrated that he was very much his father's son by leading a massacre of all those of questionable allegiance to him. Those who were loyal to him triumphed, but suffered heavy casualties. It was clear that those who remained were simply too few to hold the castle against the lion army. For Tsuruchi, the choice was stark and simple: death or surrender. Knowing the situation was hopeless, Tsuruchi originally intended an honorable surrender. But as he negotiated with his uncle, the Lion Clan commander received a message from his superiors, and unbeknownst to him, Tsuruchi saw enough of the message to know what it meant. His uncle was being ordered to kill Tsuruchi regardless of whether he surrendered or not. That night, Tsuruchi and his remaining followers, who numbered no more than 70 men, fled from Kyuden Ashinagabachi under cover of darkness. Tsuruchi had saved his own life, but in the process, he had lost his faith. His uncle's betrayal utterly shattered the young samurai's belief in Bushido, the honorable warrior's code that his mother had raised him to believe in. In a fit of rage and despair, Tsuruchi shattered his own katana, declaring that he was no longer samurai and thus would no longer wield the weapon of a samurai. Instead of a sword, Tsuruchi vowed that from that day forward he would wield no weapon other than the bow. This is more than a little ironic because historically, before the samurai became associated with the katana, they were originally mounted archers, but that's a tangent I shall not go down, as it would take up way too much time of this video. Either way, when Tsuruchi announced to his remaining men that, his renunciation of the sword notwithstanding, he fully intended to reclaim Kyuden Ashinagabachi as his home and his birthright, they all thought he'd gone mad. One of his lieutenants said as much, and when neither man gave way, they agreed to settle the matter with a contest. Both men agreed to stand at opposite ends of a circle and shoot arrows at one another. The first to draw blood would be the winner. When the contest began, the lieutenant fired first. Tsuruchi ducked, rolled forward, and came up slashing his lieutenant's face with an arrow as if it were a dagger. The lieutenant conceded defeat, and the remaining retainers renewed their fealty to their young lord. For 2 years, Tsuruchi and his loyal followers plotted their revenge, and finally, in the year 1109, the time had come to carry it out. It was a plan conducted with all the daring of Tsuruchi's lion mother and the cunning of his scorpion father. In the dead of night, just as they had fled the castle, Tsuruchi and his 70 men infiltrated Kyuden Ashinagabachi and put to the sword not only Tsuruchi's uncle, but also every single one of the Lion Clan garrison. Once again, the fight was costly, and at the end of it all, Tsuruchi had only 49 living followers. Even if the Lion Clan did not retaliate with an army, the Scorpion Clan could easily send assassins to kill him just as they had his parents. If Tsuruchi wished to hold on to his life, let alone his castle, he was going to need powerful allies. And in the end, he found one, in the form of Doji Tsukihi, swordsman of the Crane Clan, and Emerald Champion, personal bodyguard and defender of the Emperor of Rokugan. Being a crane, Tsukihi had no love for either the Lion or the Scorpion clans, and after listening to Tsuruchi's appeal, he had an idea. The first thing he did was to bring this idea before his lord, Doji Utori, champion and overlord of the Crane Clan. As the left hand of the Emperor, Utori was more than happy to do the Lion and Scorpion clans, the right and underhands respectively, a bad turn, and lent his full support behind Tsukihi's plan. With the full backing of his clan behind him, Doji Tsukihi then made a proposal to the Emperor. He suggested that Kyuden Ashinagabachi should be designated a neutral territory, a haven for imperial magistrates to rest and recuperate as they made their long circuits dispensing justice across the empire. Naturally, Tsuruchi and his men should serve as custodians of the castle, and that the castle and the surrounding lands should be placed under the direct protection of the Emerald Champion, and by implication, the imperial throne. The Emperor gave his approval, and at a single stroke, Tsuruchi gained for himself and his followers complete immunity from the enmity of his former relations. That same year, Tsuruchi formalized his independence from both the Lion and Scorpion clans by convincing the Emperor to grant him the right to reorganize his followers into a minor clan which he named the Wasp, in honor of the name his mother had given him. The Wasp clan, and its ruling family, named the Tsuruchi after its founder, was strictly a warrior clan. But while not all samurai of the Wasp clan would completely forswear the sword as Tsuruchi had, they would certainly adopt his obsession with the bow. Tsuruchi himself became famous as an archer, and the Wasp clan became famed and even feared as some of the best bowmen in all of Rokugan. But not all minor clans were founded under such exceptional and exciting circumstances as the Wasp. Consider the Centipede clan. In the early 300s, by imperial reckoning, a small group of Phoenix clan Shugenja, led by one Isawa Azami, settled in a small, isolated valley in the Mountains of Regret just beyond the borders of the Phoenix clan. It was known as the Valley of the Centipede, named for the numerous multi-legged creatures that crawled among the stones. Azami and his followers ultimately settled down and started families of their own. Azami's wife gave birth to 11 daughters, but not a single son. As such, leadership passed to Azami's eldest daughter when he died, and as a result, this tiny splinter group of the Phoenix clan became very matriarchal. Of course, while this tiny group of Shugenja was isolated, it didn't mean that the Empire didn't know about them. And one fine day, in the imperial court, a member of the Otomo family approached the Emperor and suggested that it would be easier to keep track of this little group, and easier to tax them, if they were treated as a separate clan of their own. The Emperor thought this was a good idea, and so conferred minor clan status upon this little group of Phoenix Shugenja, and the rank of daimyo upon Isawa Moshi, the granddaughter of Azami. The new daimyo chose to name her clan the Centipede, after the namesake creatures of their home. She then changed her name to Moshi Azami, thus lending her name to the ruling family of the Centipede clan, while also paying homage to her grandfather. Given that they were originally from the Phoenix clan, and the Isawa family no less, it should come as no surprise that the Centipede clan and the ruling Moshi family are very much a Shugenja clan. Their masters mostly taught spells focusing on air and fire magic. However, the Centipede clan became especially known for one other thing: their intense religious devotion to the worship of Amaterasu, the Lady Sun and mother of the Kami. But yes, they were a minor clan that was founded specifically so that the government would have an easier time taxing them. Even in fiction, it seems, taxes are inescapable. By their very nature, minor clans are small and wield very little influence, either military or political, within the Emerald Empire. That said, the imperial court was intended for all clans, great and small, to have a voice, as well as opportunity to catch the emperor's eye and earn his favor. But while all minor clans would take part in the game of Rokugani court politics, there was one clan that stood out from all the others, and in time would come to be seen as the voice of all the minor clans: the Tortoise clan. The story of the Tortoise clan begins with a Shugenja from the Dragon clan named Agasha Kasuga. Born in the year 420, Kasuga was known as an intelligent young man with some rather unorthodox views, mostly with regards to methods of teaching elemental magic and skepticism of Rokugan's hereditary class system. This last practically ensured that, in spite of his intelligence and skill, he never made it far beyond the lowest ranks within the imperial court. This skepticism did, however, win him many friends among the merchants of the Yasaki family, who valued profit and commerce over hereditary status. The events that propelled Kasuga from minor, disreputable court functionary to leader of his own clan came in the year 442 in a short but vicious naval battle between imperial forces and a small fleet of Gaijin sailors who had openly defied an imperial decree to leave Rokugan on pain of death. The events that led to this battle will have to wait for their own video, but this is a good opportunity to briefly touch on the different Gaijin nations of Legend of the Five Rings. Just as the Emerald Empire of Rokugan is essentially a fantasy version of feudal Japan, with an occasional dash of China, Korea, and Mongolia thrown in for flavor, the other known human civilizations in universe, known as Gaijin or foreign barbarians, are based on real-world civilizations. There are the Otodai to the far west, which are essentially ancient Rome, the Senpet Empire, which is ancient Egypt, the Ivory Kingdoms, who are basically India before the British Raj, and finally the kingdoms of Merene and Thrain, which, based on what little information I've been able to find about them, are supposed to be essentially 16th century Spain and England, respectively. At any rate, when the conflict between the Rokugani and the Gaijin broke out, Kasuga was possibly the only one who suspected that there was a shadowy third party that had instigated the conflict, and that the Gaijin were innocent. After the battle, Kasuga gave shelter to many of the Gaijin that managed to survive the naval battle, including a prominent Marinese nobleman named Teodoro Cornejo. Then, with the help of his friends in the Yasuki family, Kasuga sailed them safely back to their homeland. Upon his return, he was arrested for essentially conspiring with declared enemies of the empire and brought into the presence of the emperor himself to explain his actions. No one but the imperial family and the Tortoise clan themselves know what transpired between the emperor and Kasuga. But when it was over, the emperor surprised everyone by not only pardoning Kasuga for his crimes, but also by granting him and his followers the right to become a minor clan. Thus, the Tortoise clan was founded. It would be led by the descendants of Kasuga, the Kasuga family, but its membership would mostly be comprised of the descendants of the Yasuki ship captains who had helped Kasuga, and a smattering of Gaijin expats who chose to remain behind in Rokugan. As holdings, the Tortoise clan was given the White Stag Peninsula and a small strip of coastline to the north of Otosan Uchi, the imperial capital. Later, the clan was granted the distant island of Kameyama-jima, which served the clan mostly as a home away from home. At the same time that they were given the island, the Tortoise clan was also proclaimed the official caretakers of the imperial capital, essentially responsible for urban upkeep, everything from the cleaning of streets to the repairing of houses to other menial tasks. Despite being founded by a Shugenja, the Tortoise clan never became known as a clan of magic users. Instead, they were mostly a clan of courtiers and merchants. Because the Tortoise clan's holdings were quite literally on the doorstep of the imperial capital, they were thus the minor clan closest to the imperial throne and the emperor's ear. Thus, the Tortoise clan quickly assumed an unofficial role as the primary representative of all the minor clans of Rokugan. However, all of this is just a smokescreen for the true service the Tortoise clan conducts in the name of the empire: espionage. You see, in that fateful secret meeting, Agasha Kasuga persuaded the emperor that he and his followers could serve the empire well by conducting covert trade with the Gaijin nations across the sea. This would serve as a cover, allowing them to spy on the foreigners, obtain useful information, and even spread disinformation and inaccuracies about Rokugan, giving the Emerald Empire an advantage in any future wars. Now, there are two reasons why this had to be kept secret. The first is a pretty obvious one. Spies aren't all that effective if everybody knows that they're spies. The second reason is that while the Tortoise clan's trade with the Gaijin is a front for their spying, it is a direct violation of imperial law that forbids foreign trade. As such, the Tortoise clan have garnered a reputation for being deceitful smugglers. The Tortoise clan generally leans into this stereotype, deliberately cultivating ugly physical appearances and playing a game called Sadane, where two opponents use politely worded insults against one another. The first one who is unable to respond to an insult loses. Now, before you get confused, let me explain. The big secret the Tortoise clan are trying to conceal isn't the fact that they smuggle goods to and from the Gaijin lands. It's the fact that the Emperor of Rokugan is aware of and approves of this smuggling. Every time a new emperor or empress is crowned, the Tortoise clan champion, who holds the rank of Kizoku rather than daimyo, will meet with the new ruler in secret. He or she explains the true purpose of the Tortoise clan's existence, reveals all the pertinent information they've acquired from the various Gaijin societies, and concludes by formally offering to commit seppuku in atonement for breaking imperial law. This offer has very rarely been accepted, and even when it has, the Tortoise clan has never been publicly rebuked by the Chrysanthemum throne for its activities. This, of course, is the big secret. If it ever became public knowledge that the Emperor of Rokugan, symbol of the Empire and the chief maker and upholder of its laws, were known to be party to illicit activities in defiance of his own laws, it would compromise the honor of the Chrysanthemum throne. As such, any person who has gotten too close to discovering the true purpose of the Tortoise clan has been, shall we say, disappeared in order to preserve the honor of the throne. Even people as high-ranking as Emerald Magistrates, the chief law enforcement officials of the Empire.